Hello, everyone. I live in a house that was built in the 1920s as part of an estate in Plymouth for workers of the Great Western Railway. And when I moved into the house, there were quite a number of gardens in the road that had apple trees. I've since discovered that in fact virtually every garden on the estate, and it's quite a large area. It's not just my road. It's about 5 or 6 roads, all with fairly large gardens in them. They all had apple trees at one time or another, and they've slowly been destroyed or cut down as the years go by. And in fact, even in the relatively brief period that I've lived here, most of my neighbours have got rid of their trees to build extensions or just to landscape their gardens in different ways. And there was also at the end of each of some of the roads are kind of cul-de-sacs, and at the end of each cul-de-sac, linking them all together, was an area of allotment for the workers as well. So it's very much along the lines of a kind of philosophy, you might say, of building communities for workers of a particular company or concern, and providing them with more than just housing, providing them with a means of growing their own food, of sort of meeting one another. At one stage there was a community hall on the estate, that kind of thing. But to get to I've still got my tree, and I really appreciate it each year when it always has an abundant crop of apples on it. But I wanted to just sort of show a sort of small selection. There's only half a dozen apples here. And just reflect a little bit on the past, not just on that philosophy of employers providing those kind of amenities for their workers, but also to talk about the tree itself and the apples that it provide. Now, these apples nowadays, they are part of our past, really. You don't see these sort of apples on sale in grocers anymore. Partly because I suspect they don't have that kind of cosmetic appearance that supermarkets and greengrocers feel obliged to provide now. I mean, some of them have kind of calluses and areas that have been bitten by insects or whatever. Another aspect of them as well is their taste. I don't know what kind of apples these are. I've always been curious to find out. I know that there are particular interest groups who are trying to kind of collate and catalogue all of England's ancient types of apple. So it's no doubt a type that's on their database. But the taste itself, the taste of these apples, really is a kind of memory from, the 19th century probably. They are quite sharp to the taste, but not to the point where they are sour and you couldn't eat them raw, as I often do. But they are also very suitable for cooking. So again, that's another reason why these kind of apples are really on the decline, and you will only find them in people's gardens and on their allotments nowadays, and you don't see them for sale in shops. That the marketable apples are really much sweeter But every year, as I say, I get a fantastic crop off of the tree. Um, it makes me wonder how people coped with when there were. I mean, the garden in the house next door to me when I moved in had 3 apple trees. Oh, excuse me. I can barely cope with the produce of one tree, and it makes you think that in the 1920s, this is before the days when people owned freezers and refrigerators. There must have been in the autumn of each year a frenzy of activity to try and store the crops from these people's trees. They must have been busy turning them, converting them into cider and into jams and all sorts of things like that. But it would really have been a major kind of event on the estate. I usually find that a lot of the windfall I just leave for the birds in the garden, but sometimes even collecting a lot of apples off the tree, my garden is ankle deep, literally ankle deep in apples. This year I've made a particular effort to use as many of the apples as I can. So a friend of mine came round and helped me harvest them the other day. He has taken several bags of apples. I've left apples with neighbours. I've left them on people's doorsteps anonymously, but I suspect they probably realise who they're from. I have filled my freezer to capacity with chopped and stored pieces of apple in freezer bags and so on. I've made numerous apple crumbles already, and I've still got at least 2 carrier bagfuls of apples that I'm going to have to do something with fairly quickly, as well as eating them, as I say, raw. And every year I get this amazing kind of, when you bite into them, you just get that really refreshing buzz from them, and an after effect as though you've had a sort of vitamin rush. So it really eating them, collecting them, eating them, to me, really sort of helps to bring the past alive. And throughout the rest of the year, I really enjoy looking at the tree. It brings thoughts to mind of what the tree must have witnessed. Even, I mean, it's coming up to about 100 years old now, but what it has witnessed in its lifetime, because the area I live in is on quite a steep hillside, and during the war, Plymouth was very badly bombed. But I have got a map of Plymouth City and an indication of where each bomb fell. And my particular area, even though it's not in the centre of the city, there was an extreme concentration of bombs, and you can still see on some of the houses around me, and indeed if you go up into my attic there is a sort of slight indication, but more noticeably on the exterior of some of the houses around me, signs of the bomb damage. And I've recently found reports in the newspapers of people who were killed on that particular awful night. I think it was in 1941, of the funerals of several of the people who were living in the neighbourhood who were killed by the bombing. But anyway, because it's on a hillside, it seems to have collected a lot more bombs in concentration, because the planes must have been flying up as it were, at the gradient of the slope of the hill. So the bombs fell closer together. And that tree was standing there then and witnessed all that. So all things, together, it's I really appreciate the tree as a kind of a reminder reminder of the past and a reminder of the people who have enjoyed the apples like I do. And I really hope that the tree survives after I'm gone, but the trend, as I say, on the estate is to take these trees down. But anyway, there we are. Just thoughts inspired by collecting apples. Thanks very much for watching. See you again on the next video.